Hey everyone, my name is Sam and welcome to my weekly wrap-up. This is just a chance for me to get to go over the books that I read each week. As you may be able to tell from this video if you are new, or if you are not new that you've noticed in my past videos, I read a lot very quickly, so a monthly wrap-up would just be like a million minutes long. So this way I get to go over each of them, give you a little bit of a summary, my rating, and my review. Before I even get started, this week was kind of a cool and kind of depressing week as well. We had the official reveal of who won all the Goodreads awards, and can we please, as a society, stop automatically voting for a J.K. Rowling book to win fantasy? Look, I'm all for Harry Potter, love the series, but for 2 years now, her screenplays have won the Goodreads Fantasy Award. I'm glad you enjoy Fantastic Beast. Cursed Child, we just don't even talk about that, and the fact that that won, I don't even know what to do with that. Stop voting automatically for J.K. Rowling. If you didn't read books in that category, you don't vote. You can just skip the category. It's just really infuriating when books like that win, because it's even like A Court of Wings and Ruin. I loved that book, but that book was by no means the best book this year. Not writing, not plot, nothing. So it just reminded me again and again that Goodreads has kind of been ruined for me by just like massive fandoms that will automatically vote. I know several people who said they voted for A Court of Wings and Ruin despite saying that they either didn't like it all that much or that they hadn't read any of the other books in the category. Just skip it! Stop ruining it for everyone! Oh my god, it's infuriating. So despite having to go on a little mini trip for work this week, I actually managed to still read 5 books, which I'm pretty impressed with. 2 of which were on a Friday, which, like, 2 books in a day is one thing, but I also worked a full day that day and went to the gym. So I'm pretty impressed with myself for reading 5 books in the 7 days with all that. So with that being said, this is them in the order that I read them throughout the week. So the first book that I read this week was Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan Crow. This automatically, I picked it up. It was mentioned at a Dewey Diva session that I had for work, and I remember the blurb being something along the lines of, if you liked Harry Potter or Percy Jackson, then this is a good book to try. And oh my god, yes. I read Percy Jackson in the past year for the first time. I think I kind of missed the big hype about it originally. I enjoyed it, but I definitely am not as into the fandom as some other people that I know that are obsessed with it. Whereas Harry Potter, I hit that at the sweet age spot for me and kind of grew with it. So I absolutely love Harry Potter. This has so many Harry Potter feels and vibes to it. Right off the bat, I will say I gave it a 5 out of 5. I originally borrowed my copy from the library and then returned it. And when I was in Edmonton, I went to the bookstore and picked up my own copy of it because it's going to be at least another book. I think it's supposed to actually be longer than just 2 books, but I definitely want to reread it before the second book comes out. And the cover is really cool too. It has a Hagrid character. It has this girl being saved, kind of like a cupboard under the stairs kind of situation. In general, the summary is that there is a girl named Morrigan Crow her father is a politician in their small town, and anytime something bad happens in the town, she is blamed because she was born on a certain day and is considered cursed. And anytime her family has just accepted it, but part of this curse is that you will die on your 12th birthday. And all of a sudden, the event that normally marks that day happens on her 11th birthday, and all of a sudden she is whisked away and into this new world, and people bet on her. She's trying to figure out what her powers are, and she has to go through a contest in order to stay in this new world to learn and develop these powers. And the people helping her are, both good and bad, and people are fighting over. She doesn't know exactly where to go, and that's really where this Hagrid character sits in. And it is fantastic and wonderful and so creative, and I enjoyed it so much. Just like I said, it's got those Harry Potter feels, but it's not a total ripoff. There's the competitions as well, and it's just so cool. And I was amazed that this was a debut novel. I think the author had been a copywriter or something before, so not totally new to this whole world, but I was so immensely happy that I was drawn to this from the cover and the blurb alone. So absolutely. It's technically middle grade, but that really didn't affect my enjoyment or anything like that. It was just well written, and there's just no romance really in it. It's kind of the only reason I would consider it not YA. It's just so cool and fantastical, and there's a big villain reveal at the end, and you just know it's going to happen in the second book, and that's why I'm really curious. She could go so far and make it a full series if she wants to with this villain, because it just left it so open-ended. Big chaos is going to happen, but I just don't know exactly where it's going. So you get introduced to this ragtag kind of group of friends, and there's like a giant cat that is like a horse kind of situation, and there's like there's kind of like video game-ish kind of competitions as well in it that kind of reminded me of like, I don't know if it's Spyro or something like that, but when you like have to catch, no, Pac-Man. Parts of it reminded me of Pac-Man where you're trying to catch like dots and all that kind of stuff. So I would very highly, highly recommend this book. It was such a fun read, and I think it's like 400 pages or so, but it's actually 450 pages. I flew through it. It was such an enjoyable book. So I would absolutely recommend this book. It was probably my favorite book of the week. Yeah, it was definitely my favorite book of the week for sure, and I'm really, really happy I have my own copy now. The second book that I read this week was Earth's End by Elise Kova. I read this book physically without any help from an audiobook, which is the only book that I did that for this week. I seem to notice that I'm like able to whip through like 4 audiobooks in a week, but just because of having to hold the physical book and sit down and keep my attention, I am normally only able to get through like 1 physical book a week. Nonetheless, this is the 3rd book in the Air Awakened series. The 2nd book absolutely crushed me how it ended. The 3rd book, I was so happy. This book didn't lure me for like 50% of the book before finally revealing what happened and like explanations for the end of it. It like jumps right in from where it was. Without giving too many spoilers, the war is still going on that is happening in Fire Falling, and there is lots of romance development and then crushing. And I don't know I'm so hesitant about the 4th and the 5th book, because everyone has told me who's read this series that the 4th and the 5th book aren't as good as the 2nd and 3rd book. I don't know if they mean that writing-wise or plot-wise or romance-wise, and I don't want to spoil myself, but I kind of need to know. So I'm going to read the 4th and the 5th book in January. I'm so hesitant about the potential romance going to be happening after this because of how things go down in this. I don't know. I'm kind of scared and nervous. I know that there's like a mass heartbreak ripping out of my the whole Tamlin Reese Faye situation. I feel it going to happen, and I don't know if my heart can take that. So I ended up giving Earth's End a 5 out of 5 as well. Ironically, I finished it on the same day of the Rebels of Gold coming out. I'm still waiting for my copy to show up because I don't know why Indigo's taking so long to ship it, but nonetheless, I'm really, really happy that I'm kind of almost like caught up on the series. I'll basically be caught up by the end of January, so I'm pretty happy about that. The 3rd book that I read this week was Shatter Me by Tahara Mafi, and this was easily, hands down, my least favorite book of the week. I don't understand. I mean, reading is subjective, so I mean, like, I get that, but I don't understand how this has over a 4-star rating on Goodreads. Like, now, I have read the author's middle grade book, Furthermore, and I actually really enjoyed it. And the writing, someone on Goodreads kind of perfectly described it as, this is like the product of a creative writing class. And like, the author can very clearly write. She just used way, way overused, for my personal taste, metaphors and similes. Okay, so this book is over 300 pages. I think that's like a good enough amount of time to do like world building and relationship building, but literally all of that was kind of just put second in order for her to make space for her to come up with these metaphors that were just totally unnecessary and just took up space. They didn't add anything to the story. In fact, I kept being like, huh? What? What? And you can look on Goodreads, actually. People have pulled out, there's tons of reviews on there of people who've pulled out, like, quotes that, like, just, like, don't make sense, or were like, why did this need to be here? I don't know, like, what the editing process of this was, because... So the general synopsis of this story, if you haven't heard, it's been out for quite a while, is a girl has been kept in captivity. She was, I think it was like forfeited by her parents because she has this ability when she touches people to kill them. That is kind of where this whole thing starts. It's kind of dystopian. People have given up their rights for a government that promised to do one thing and then ended up doing another, and it's kind of dystopian, destitute world. I don't know if it was the writing. It is heavy insta-love. I also like partially read this with an audiobook, and I borrowed the audiobook off Hoopla. I'll have to check who the narrator was, but the voice was that of like a 5-year-old girl, which really made the romance super uncomfortable, like even to like a higher degree of my already kind of about the insta-love. It just had a lot of cringy moments, but it's one of those weird books that like, it's kind of like a Christmas Prince film that it's like so weird and kind of bad for me that it like kind of reverted back around in the circle to being like I kind of want to see where this goes because it's funny. And I know that's definitely not how the author meant for it to go. But that being said, the ending had an interesting-ish kind of like plot introduction for the sequel. I may, because I already own the sequel, Unravel Me, give it a go. I just didn't care for any of the characters. The like romance between Juliet and I think his name's Adam or something like that. Didn't care for that at all. Was pretty underdeveloped, super insta-lovey. Didn't like that part of it. And then like the person that was supposed to be like the character you love to hate, just didn't care about him at all. I mean, he didn't really like faze me whatsoever. Didn't love him, didn't hate him. Just, I knew he was supposed to be the villain in the book, but I don't get the fandom around these characters, and I know there is one. I've also been told that this series is one of those series that it gets better as it goes on, which I've already explained in my videos. That doesn't mean it's a good series to me. And the idea of forcing a reader to get through 300 to 400 pages of absolute cringiness in this book in order to get to decent plot and writing means that this shouldn't be written, or it should be written completely differently, or someone needed to take an editing red pen to it and combine the books, or something. That is not a justification to make readers continue reading the series, that it gets better. I know the first book is bad. Like, that's just... And I feel like that is the problem with YA publishing now. They will literally publish anything, it seems like, and then the first book is like, and then it gets better. No. You need to make sure that the first book is it's good to start off with. Like, yeah, so I think I may try and read Unravel Me in January just to give it a go. Because like I said, the ending did interest me, and it was kind of like bad enough that it was funny for me that I wanted to continue reading it. So I hope that it does get better in the second book. I also got to the end of this book and don't understand the covers. Like, they're pretty, but I don't get what this has to do with the book. I mean, the original cover has, I'll put that there, the original cover has a girl in the cut front, and I don't like that, but that makes more sense than this. I literally don't understand this, so yeah. So I ended up giving the book a 2 out of 5 stars. In all honesty, it was a 1, and then I thought back of how many times I made jokes and was able to make myself laugh, and I was like, know what? Give it 2 stars. The fourth book that I read this week was The Glass Sparrow by Lauren DeStefano. I absolutely loved this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It's got a really promising start, and I'm super curious as to where the sequel is going to go, because there's a lot of characters introduced, and some of them are like, like the father and one of the brothers is very clearly a villain in here. But there's this like almost Rumpelstiltskin-esque character kind of introduced at the very end after like the questing. And then there's the mother, who has been introduced, but I can't get a read on her. And then one of the brothers got married, and that marriage brought in a new character, but nothing came of it. So it's either completely unnecessary or it's going to come up in the second book. So I'm waiting to see which is going to happen. It's really interesting. The entire plot of this book is there is a kingdom where there is she's the 4th child, the daughter. She has 3 older brothers, and she finds out at the beginning of this book through a couple series of events that she touches things and they turn to gemstones. After finding out that, there's some chaos and some heartbreak, and she runs away and tries to find this Rumpelstiltskin-esque character to solve this, to get rid of this. I actually was pleasantly surprised, because I think this is the author's first book, with the character having the powers and the problems and the results from these powers that happen at the beginning. I want to like kind of give a shout out to this author for not having that young female character in YA with powers that she doesn't understand and doesn't know how to control that hurt people. She didn't spend the entire book inner monologuing and punishing herself, which, thank God. That is so overused and exhausting in YA. Like halfway through some of those books, I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, I'm tired of like trying to support you. Yes, this is all your fault. I don't care anymore. Yes, and you're to blame. And the romance in this is a very weird that the romance between the main character and the guy is already married and his wife is aware of what's going on. And it's like a whole weird kind of situation, but it's not like a 3-way relationship or anything like that. It's just very interesting. I'm so curious to see how that comes about. Like, it just, like, there's like a real friendship that really warmed my heart, but there's kind of like something brought up about the romance near the end that made me be like, oh, I don't know if I want to ship this then. Like, wait, what is happening? So I am definitely going to be reading the sequel, and I am super, super curious to see where that plot goes and where the relationships go. And exactly to find out why one of the brothers was married and then why that girl is there and then the mother. I just can't figure out mother. I just feel like she's bad or playing me or something. I just don't know. And the fifth book that I read this week completely by audiobook was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, I believe it is. I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars. I don't really know how to summarize it because it was one of my reasons that I didn't totally like it, but essentially it is the kind of epic story of, I think it's, I want to make sure I say the name right, Patroclus and Achilles, and it's pretty well known now. They have a romantic relationship between the two men. It kind of reminded me of a lot of like the epics that I had to read for classics and Viking history classes of, it's more of like a biography and the life story of someone from point A to point B and kind of all the ups and downs in between. This book, I think my hesitation was that I really didn't understand like the plot point. You're just like, okay, like I know you're going to the Trojan War and it's going to happen, like, and it was just kind of like nothing really progressed along the way. I also, because of how it was written, and it's totally subjective, this is something that's totally like dependent on each reader. I think it was part of the fact because I used to have to read these and analyze these for school. I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, like, I know, like, I get that this is important, blah, 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 but, like, the pace was just kind of a flat line the whole way through. I didn't find anything really, really picked up. It was an interesting writing style to take on, and I totally credit the author for that. I think that is kind of, like, a unique twist to add, and I don't know that there are very many modern stories that get published that are written that kind of way, so I think that's really cool to have some diversity of that sort of writing. My big problem was when books like that are written at such a static, flatline pace, just like the Alice Network, I get like about 50% of the way through and I'm like, can we wrap this up? Like, can we, yeah, like, we're done? And that is just exactly what happened here. I didn't really there wasn't really much of a plot, and just because of how it was written, there wasn't really any character development. You could hear, like, the dialogue, but, I didn't really feel like I knew Achilles. Like, I don't get it. And, like, again, too, by the end of it, now I kept in my mind joking, being like, oh, that's not how it happened in the movie. That's not how Brad Pitt did it. And, like, when that happens, I know I've just, like, mentally checked out of the book. I'm just kind of done with it. So those are very, very heavily reader-based reasons to like or dislike a book. So I would just keep that in mind when you're reading it, and you'll know what your reading preferences are. So those are all of the books that I read this week. Thanks for checking out my video. Make sure to give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books and if you liked or disliked them. Make sure to check out the description box down below where all of my social media is linked. If you follow me, I will follow you back.